Gentleman from Illinois, Mr. Garcia, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the ranking member. I want to thank all the witnesses for joining us today to address the issue of home appraisal bias and discrimination. In 2021, Latino home ownership rate remained steady, and Latinos are projected to represent half of new homeowners in the next decade. However, discrimination against Latinos in the appraisal process poses a serious harm to our community and contributes to the widening wealth gap in our nation. Communities of color deserve the opportunity to purchase or sell a home at a fair price to build wealth. We must take action so that Latino and Black communities are not shortchanged by a discriminatory system that aims at keeping neighborhoods like the ones I represent segregated and undervalued. A question for Ms. Lisa Rice. In your testimony, you referenced qualitative research that has displayed appraisers as active participants of discrimination against communities of color. One appraiser assumed neighborhoods were, quote, getting better and housing values were increasing because of all the Mexican people moving out. I represent a district with working class Latino and immigrant families, communities, and this community has been hit hard by gentrification and displacement and discrimination within the appraisal process. Can you speak to the impact of discrimination in the housing market and how that has perpetuated gentrification and the undervaluation in communities of color?
Thank you, Congressman Garcia, for the question. Yes. So discrimination has very debilitating impacts, not just for the individual consumer involved, because when an individual consumer experiences discrimination, they can be denied a housing opportunity. And we know that home ownership leads to stability and other great benefits for families, particularly families with children. So, for example, home ownership for families with children leads to higher educational attainment for children. There are many, many benefits to home ownership. And so denying people the opportunity or doing anything that would result in denying a person an opportunity for home ownership has debilitating impacts for that family, but it also has debilitating impacts for a community. And let me say, you know, I don't think that most appraisers are discriminatory or out there practicing discrimination, but I definitely think that we have some systemic issues, and we also have some appraisers who are engaging in behaviors that they should not be.
Thank you for that. A question for Mr. Bishop. The issue of discrimination at every point in the housing market, from loan applications to appraisals, are exacerbated by the lack of diversity in the housing and appraisal fields. A recent report found that 85% of appraisers nationwide were white and less than 5% identified as Latino. Can you speak towards the major challenges for recruiting diverse appraisers and what more can be done to shift these numbers?
That's an excellent question, Congressman Garcia. And as I've said before, we have ADI, we've got the Appraisal Institute's AIERF with scholarships. Those are scholarships. We've got our efforts in the universities to promote the profession at that level. And other than that, the obstacles to this are simply the time required and expense required in just obtaining a license. And then post-licensing, getting the experience. We've talked about it. PAREA should satisfy the experience part. The ADI initiative, the Appraisal Institute's Education Relief Fund, should provide opportunities in the cost arena. So short of that, we have to promote the profession as viable for entrance into the profession and introduce it. And that's the tricky part. Believe it or not, the most, in my experience, in my world, it's second job, third job opportunity folks that find appraising and want to get in. So they're not coming out of the universities. So we have to find those folks too and try to promote the profession in order to diversify. And this is a top priority for the Appraisal Institute. Our strategic planning, our board adopted a new strategic plan in the last quarter, and diversity was one of the top initiatives from that strategic plan.
Gentleman's time has
Thank you for
expired.
that. My time has expired, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.